Assalamu alaikum and hi, all our friends. Welcome to this new series where we will answer frequently asked questions arising from misconceptions about Islam. And today's topic is: does Islam teach Muslims to respect the places of worship of other religions or not? So, the way we are going to look at this is that we are going to look at the Holy Quran and see what the Holy Quran has to say and supplement that with the Sunnah, that is, the actions of the Holy Prophet Muhammad and extracts possibly from his sayings. So if we go to the Holy Quran and we look at chapter 22, the pilgrimage al Hajj, and we look at verse 40. I'll just read the translation. Those who are driven from their homes without a just cause, except that they say, our Lord is Allah. And if Allah did not repel some people by others, cloisters and churches and synagogues and mosques, in which Allah's name is much remembered, would have been pulled down. And surely Allah will help him who helps Allah. Surely Allah is strong, mighty. Now you can see here that God says, if Allah did not repel some people by others, so it's a Muslim's duty to protect other places of worship. It's not just mosques, it says cloisters and churches and synagogues and mosques. So it includes the Jewish places of worship and Christian places of worship together with mosques, and it says cloisters. Cloisters is uh, Sawami'u, and it means places which have a kind of uh, a minaret that is narrow at the top. And that applies to most places of worship. And in fact, the verse itself, all those places in which Allah's name is much remembered, whatever we might call him, whatever we might call him, we go to these places to worship the divine being. You may call him Allah, you may call him God, you may call him Elohim, you may call him Bhagwan, whatever. But there's only one creator for all of us, and that is Allah. Now, the question that naturally then arises is this. Yes, this may be the theory, but has it been put into practice anywhere? And yes, it has. And it has been put into practice by the founder of Islam, Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who received the revelation. Some years ago, Christian, he went to some monasteries and he found letters signed by the Holy Prophet Muhammad, in which he said, they start with words like, this is a contract. This is an agreement between Muhammad, the Prophet of Allah, and the Nasranis, the Nazarenes, as the Christians were called at the time, that their priests will have complete protection. Their income will have complete protection and it will not be taxed. And they will not be harmed or harassed, and that their places of worship will not only be protected, but if they can't afford it, then the Muslim state will uh, protect those places. Muslim state will have them repaired. And this letter was found in a monastery in Sania. And when the Turks occupied Sania, and the Turks took the original and left behind a copy. And since then, some researchers have found other letters. And these letters end by saying that anyone who does not honor this agreement is a fasik. Fasik is a very strong word, and it means a transgressor. And it says that on the day of judgment, he will have to answer for his transgression. Now, you might say, well, okay, Christians in a monastery found this. How does it prove that other places of worship are going to be protected? What proves it is that the Holy Quran says that God sent prophets to every nation. Some of them are mentioned in the Holy Quran, and some prophets are not mentioned in the Holy Quran. So I conclude from that if the places of worship of two prophets are going to be protected, churches, Prophet Jesus, alayhi salam, and synagogues, Hazrat Musa, Moses, and that chain of prophets, then why shouldn't places of worship built by followers of other religions not be protected? This letter and these things are in the context of Christians and Jews because these were the people known in Arabia and known to the Holy Prophet Muhammad. If he'd known about Buddhists and if he'd known about Hindus and other religions, he would have provided them with exactly the same sanctuary and security and protection and rights as were granted to Christians and Jews. So it is wrong, this propaganda that Islam teaches Muslims to disrespect other religions or their places of worship and doesn't provide protection for their places of worship and so on is incorrect. I know that Muslims do not always behave in accordance with the teachings of Islam, but that is not the fault of the religion itself. That is our behavior, which brings Islam into disrepute and allows others to raise objections against Islam. So, briefly, to answer the question, Islam teaches that you must respect the places of worship of all religions, regardless of whether you agree with them or you don't agree with them. And I have given one example, which is of Christian monasteries and churches where letters of the Holy Prophet Muhammad were found stating this in black and white, and without any ifs and without any buts. I think that sufficiently answers the question in a nutshell. I don't know if Ahad wants to add anything to this.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very nice explanation regarding our topic of discussion today, that should Muslims respect all places of worship. A very nice explanation given by Shahid uncle, and I would also like to present some of my views on this topic, and whatever I think would be beneficial to explain the context. I would be speaking on the in the light of Holy Quran. So I'll begin. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So, as per our topic today, this is a very important topic from both Muslim and non-Muslim point of view. Now, why I say that is because this, like the religion of Islam, it has taught us how to, uh, how a person, a Muslim, should live his life, and all these kind of interactions. Like, we have to deal with all kind of people, whether they are Muslims, whether they are non-Muslims. So, Islam has taught us the way in which we should treat non-Muslims, the way we should like work with them, the way we should be with them. So everything has been taught to us in our religion. This subject, like, it holds profound significance in our multi-religious world. Islam, as a comprehensive way of life, offers guidance on how Muslims should engage with people of other faiths and their sacred spaces. So, first, I would like to throw some light on this topic using some verses from the Holy Quran. Since the Holy Quran is our primary source of guidance, and Holy Quran has provided clear directives on this particular matter. How? That I'll let you know in a while. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala emphasizes the importance of justice and respect for all human beings, regardless of their faith. So first I would like to discuss what does the Holy Quran say about the sacred places. So the in the chapter Al-Hajj, which is chapter number 22 of the Holy Quran, we see the verse number 40, in which it is said, "And were it not that Allah checks the people, some by means of others, there would have been demolished monasteries, churches, synagogues, and mosques in which name of Allah is mentioned." Now, this verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala acknowledges the sanctity of various places of worship. The important word in this particular verse is sawami, which is monasteries. So this verse actually highlights the protection of places of worship across different faiths and stressing the importance of their preservation. And then, what does the Holy Quran teach us? It teaches us about upholding justice. In Surah Al-Mumtahina, which is chapter number 60 of the Holy Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded the Muslims to act justly and kindly towards everyone who do not fight you, and who are not fighting you on the basis of religion, or who are not in direct fight with you. So Allah Ta'ala, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, has taught us to act justly and kindly towards them. How He has taught that? Let's see. That is Surah Al-Mumtahina, chapter number 60, verse number 8 of the Holy Quran. Allah does not forbid you from those who do not fight you because of religion and do not expel you from your homes. What does not Allah forbid? He does not forbid you from being righteous towards them and acting justly towards them. Indeed, Allah loves those who act justly. So this verse actually encourages fairness and kindness towards non-Muslims, reinforcing the idea that respect should extend to their places of worship as well. And one small prophetic example from which we see from the hadith and other literature is the Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad offers practical examples of respecting the places of worship. One such example is that during the conquest of Makkah, the Prophet ordered the protection of all places of worship. Additionally, when a Christian delegation from Najran visited Medina, Prophet allowed them to pray in his mosque. And another illustration from the history of Islam, we have another incident. The Rashidun Khalifas, primarily Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu ta'ala anhu, exemplified this during the conquest of Jerusalem. Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu refused to pray in the church of Sepulchre to ensure it remained a Christian place of worship, emphasizing the coexistence and respect. He was the Khalifa, he was the ruler. If he would have wanted, he could have easily, uh, like change it into a mosque, but he didn't. He respected the coexistence, and he respected that it should remain a place of worship for Christians. which is again a very important uh, concept for us to learn from. And in conclusion, I would like to say that Islamic teachings from the Quran and Hadith and historical practices unequivocally advocate for respecting all places of worship. As Muslims, it is our duty to embody these principles in our interactions and promoting a world where diverse faiths can coexist peacefully. Jazakallahu khair for your attention. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us all to be ambassadors of peace and respect. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And now I would like to request Shahid uncle to please proceed with our FAQ and Q&A section.
Okay, we've got some questions, um, and we'll give brief answers to them. Do Muslims believe in the destruction of non-Muslims' places of worship? No. Islam does not endorse the destruction of non-Muslim places of worship, as we have seen from the verse that has been recited from Surah Hajj, verse 40. Are Muslims taught to disrespect other religions and their places of worship? Again, no. Islam respects differences of opinion. For example, there is a short surah at the end of the Holy Quran, which says that, "Oh, you who disagree with me, I can't convince you, but you will never be able to convince me. So you carry on living the way you want to, and I'll carry on living the way I want to, and in the end, the truth will become apparent." So that shows that, that Islam doesn't say fight with them and force them or disrespect them or anything like that. Did Prophet Muhammad ever show respect to places of worship of other faiths? But yes, the example I gave of the covenants of the Holy Prophet, where the Holy Prophet guaranteed that a Muslim state will build and repair the places of worship of Christians. And I extend that to include other religions. Islam goes so far as to say that when some Christians came to debate with the Holy Prophet about his claims, and they asked to be pardoned because it was time for their worship, the Holy Prophet said, "Is this not a house of God?" And he asked Muslims to retire and allowed Christians to pray in the mosque. And then after they had finished their worship, they then called the Muslims back into the mosque. And remember that when Muslims conquered Jerusalem, Jews had been barred and banned from entering Jerusalem by previous occupiers. And it was Hazrat Umar Raziullah Ta'ala who asked the governor of Jerusalem to find Jews and bring them back to Jerusalem because it was their holy city as well. So if Islam did not preach respect for other religions and their places of worship, why would Hazrat Umar go to the trouble of finding Jews which had been expelled and bringing them back to Jerusalem? There is a theory that it was Suleiman the Magnificent, the Turkish Khalifa, who built the current Wailing Wall to which the Jews go to pray. And that was after he rescued them from being murdered and burnt alive in Spain. Another question we received is, how did the early Islamic rulers treat places of worship of other religions? Well, this I've answered already. And another example was given by Ahad, that Hazrat Umar was visiting the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem, and the call to prayer was given, and he started to leave. And in fact, those in charge of the church, they said to him, You can pray in the church. This is a house of Allah as well. And the reason he gave for leaving was that it may be that Muslims who come after change this into a mosque by force, because they would say Umar prayed here, so this should be a mosque. So he left and he prayed outside. Do Muslims have to avoid visiting non-Muslim prayers of worship? Again, no. And this is a general fatwa, as it's called, um, uh, given by the Islamic Fiqh Council, which says that Muslims are allowed to visit other places of worship. The only ban is that Muslims are not allowed to partake in any worship which means that they're worshipping anything other than Allah. Are there any Quranic verses which promote intolerance towards other religions? Well, there's a short verse of the Holy Quran which says, La ikraha fid din. There is no compulsion in religion. And the reason is given that the right way and the wrong way are obvious. But it's up to an individual to choose whatever path they want to choose. And again, Islam teaches Muslims to deal with others. But what the first thing the Holy Prophet Muhammad did was he entered into an agreement that is known as the Constitution of Medina. And what it said was, as long as inhabitants of Medina were loyal to the state of Medina, they'd be free to preach their religion, to take part in the worship of their religion, and there will not be any kind of coercion or force used against people. So this is not just theory. This happened in practice, that this was done. What does Islam say about harming non-Muslims and their places of worship? Well, I've given some examples about the Christian churches and so on already, but there is also a hadith in Abu Dawud which says, whoever harms a non-Muslim living in the Muslim state, they were called zimmis, they were called the protected people, I shall be his prosecutor on the day of judgment. This is the Holy Prophet Muhammad saying that if a Muslim harms a non-Muslim living under Muslim protection, and that is in a Muslim state, then that non-Muslim will find the Holy Prophet prosecuting his case in the hereafter. Can Muslims contribute to the upkeep of non-Muslim places of worship? Well, I've already given an example of the Holy Prophet actually entering into an agreement which stated that the Muslim state will build and repair Christian churches and so on. So why should other religions be excluded from this? But there's also a general fatwa of the Islamic Fiqh Council which says that yes, it can be done. Is it true that Islamic history is filled with examples of intolerance towards other religions? Well, I would say no. You know, how did Muslims end up in Spain? Because one sect of Christians went to Muslims, and these were the words of this sect. They said, we hear there is no compulsion regarding religion in your state. In our country, that is Spain, our brothers are persecuting and prosecuting us, and we have come to seek protection from you, from our brothers. This is how Muslims ended up in Spain. And again, when Muslims were defeated in Spain and had to flee, it wasn't just Muslims who were being burnt alive on the stake. There was also Jews who were being burnt alive. And Suleiman the Magnificent, the Khalifa in Turkey, he sent his navy to rescue these people. And he didn't just rescue Muslims, he also rescued Jews. He took them to Palestine and Jerusalem and other places and offloaded them there, and Muslims went to Turkey and some stayed in Palestine as well. So it wasn't the West who were the first people to take Jews to Palestine from their foreign places. It was the Muslims. Um how can respecting other places of worship improve relations between Muslims and non-Muslims? Obviously, respecting other places of worship fosters mutual understanding, etc., and kindness towards each other. For example, in Surah Mumtahina, chapter 60, verse 8, we are told to act kindly. If personal example is anything, I live next door to a Christian vicar, and the church had a kind of a fair yesterday to raise money for the church, and they invited me, and I went as well. And we've been to these fairs previously where the church raises money for its upkeep and so on and so forth. And I met the vicar, etc. And initially, when this happened, they were very surprised that a Muslim is coming to a Christian fair and contributing and so on and so forth. But the reason was I wasn't doing it hypocritically. I wasn't doing it because I wanted to look good. I was doing it because my prophet, Hazrat Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam, entered into a treaty with Christians, making it a duty of Muslims to contribute towards the repair of these places as well. And I end by quoting Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Sahib. When a doctor qualified, he went to seek advice from the promised Messiah about how he should conduct his medical practice. And Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad told him that when a sick person sits in front of you, then never let the thought of his religion or sect enter your head. Be grateful to Allah that He has put in your hands the skills to relieve a human being's distress, and do your best. Just think of these words. Never let the man's religion or sect enter into your head. And that is the fundamental teaching of the Ahmadiyya interpretation, Lahore Ahmadiyya interpretation of Islam, that humanity is one, as the Quran says. And when it comes to doing good, you do good, but you don't ask a man's religion. You don't ask a man's sect. If you see someone in distress, step forward and help him without bothering about which group or color or nationality or whatever that he belongs to. I think that's um, sufficiently covers the whole thing um, for today.
Yes, I think very nice explanations for the questions we received, and I'll be dropping our email as well in the description box. So if someone else has any other questions, he can feel free to
Hmm.
reach out.
Yep.
And by this, I think our today's episode of this series comes to an end. Today we have completely discussed about how should a Muslim respect all other non-Muslim places of worship. We discussed all the references, all the possible discussions. But say even then, if someone wants to ask any question or wants to say anything, please feel free to reach out to us. Our social media handles and every other detail has been provided in the description box. If you liked our uh, discussion, feel free to please subscribe so that you are updated with our all other future discussions. And
Inshallah.
inshallah, and by this I think we conclude for today. So Till next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam.